And welcome to the Monday, March 9th, 2026 Maplewood City Council Manager Workshop. City Clerk Sint, would you do the roll call for us?
Councilmember Cave.
Here.
Councilmember Juniman.
Here.
Councilmember Lee.
Present.
Councilmember Villavicencio.
Here.
Mayor Abrams.
I am here as well. Thank you very much. Would someone like to make a motion to approve our agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Cave, seconded by Lee, the motion to approve the agenda. Is there any further discussion? I have a point. I've been asked by City Clerk Sint if we could move E1, which is the board and commission interviews, up ahead of D, because everyone is here. It looks like they're here for their interviews, and we don't want to make them wait. So I would like to propose that amendment.
Do you need a second? Second.
Yes, okay, we'll go with that. We'll go with that. Mr. Beatty isn't here, but we're
Yeah.
going with it.
Mr. Beatty?
It sounds good. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion to approve the agenda as amended has passed, and we are going to jump right ahead to our commission interviews. I need to find that. Okay. You are going to be the presenter for it.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Before you, you have a commission interview packet, so the applicants have, the background packet is in your information. We have 5 questions for each of the candidates to consider for discussion, and so you can choose to have every council member ask one question, or you could choose to, Mayor, just ask them as you wish. But we have time for all of the candidates to appropriately answer the questions, and so really it's up to you in terms of how you would like to do it, if you'd like to rotate through or just read them all, but just get an opportunity to hear from the candidates themselves.
You know, it's always nice, I think, when council members have an opportunity to ask a question. So why don't we do this? Why don't we start with, we'll start down here with number 1. You'll do all number 1s.
Yep.
Councilmember Juniman, you'll do number 2s. I'll do number 3s. Councilmember Lee, you'll do number 4s. And Councilmember Villavicencio, you'll do number 5. All right?
That's good.
We have our first candidate, Deborah Schneider. Good evening and welcome to the council. Do you want to come up to the dais, please?
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Great.
We can. Good evening. Thank you, everyone who's here, for your interest in serving one of our commissions. I can't tell you how important they are to advising us on some of the very important things that we do. So thank you all for your interest. Councilmember Cave, you have question 1.
Hi, good evening. What do you feel you can bring to the ENR Commission, your interests, talents, and life experiences?
So interests, I have kind of a background professionally in the sciences. I have undergrad degrees in biology and chemistry, and I've been working as a researcher for 3M, and then 3M spun off a company, so now I'm at the spin-off company. So I have like a very scientific-minded approach to things. But I'm also just an enthusiastic amateur about the environment and environmental restoration. I've been trying to transform my yard in Maplewood into a native prairie and learning about native prairie plants along the way. And I also volunteer for like buckthorn removal and cleanup projects through Friends of the Mississippi, seed counting through Lake Elmo. So I'm looking to get involved in a more kind of formal way through this commission. And further back, my other background is I was raised on a farm, so I'm kind of like I kind of also have an agriculture background.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councilmember Juniman.
Good evening. The ENR Commission focuses on issues related to the environment such as recycling, solid waste, stormwater management, wetlands, energy, and others. Please share your experience in working with one of these issues or other issues related to the environment.
So like I said, I've been volunteering through Friends of the Mississippi on cleanups for rivers and like watershed areas. I also just like enjoy getting out into the nature preserves, walking around, seeing things. And I know that, you know, there's a lot of opportunity for removing non-native plants and restoring certain areas, for example, Priory and these other nature preserves that Maplewood has.
Thank you.
The city of Maplewood tries very hard to balance development and property rights with the protection of our natural resources. Where do you see your interest or concerns in the process of balancing these interests?
I think a good example is the Gladstone Savannah Park, where they have been putting in apartment buildings, but there's also kind of a protected prairie there. And I would like to see, when a project like that happens, the developer who pays to put in the apartment buildings would also chip in money to restore and fix the park afterwards. You know, I very much understand the need for cheaper housing and balancing these things, but it seems like if they're gonna profit out of having the land and having Maplewood sell them land, they could give back to the community.
Thank you. Councilmember Lee.
Thank you. What types of environmental policies or practices has the city of Maplewood put into place that you feel have made a positive impact on the city?
A very direct one that happened recently, like a block away from my house, is there's Hillside Park, and it was flooding really terribly like 2 years ago. And then the city came in and redid the road and put in these wonderful rain gardens that have quite helped mitigate that flooding issue. I would like to see that happen wherever possible, because it seems like a great way to mitigate a problem that people have, slipping on ice, wading through water, and as well as create these pockets where birds and insects can thrive.
Thank you.
Councilmember Villavicencio.
Hello. What two environmental issues do you feel the ENR Commission should address for the city of Maplewood?
I think one issue that I would like to see addressed is pollution with watersheds. I see a lot of people throwing things in the roadways that then get swept into the gutters. I think we could kind of have more community volunteer days where you have neighbors go out and clean up, as well as perhaps having the police enforce fining if they see this happen. The other thing is just we do have some areas where we could collaborate with neighboring towns, because Maplewood is such an odd shape and at the junction of Oakdale and North St. Paul. So one example of that is North St. Paul has this park called Southwood Nature Center right along Holloway, and I think Ramsey County owns the swamp that abuts Hill Murray. There's a endangered turtle there that is called Blanding's turtle, and I saw someone out there doing turtle counts of people running over the turtles and leaving the shells behind. So it seems like the city, if they're ever going to redo the road, it would be an opportunity to put in an underpass or something like that. So protecting kind of niche animals wherever possible when doing renovation projects. So it wouldn't have to be like a big expensive thing. If you're already fixing the road, you could collaborate with the other cities in the county to do something like that.
Thank you. Those are all of our questions. I believe that you were given those questions I had. I think everybody was, weren't they? No.
Mayor, council members, I don't know the answer to that question.
Oh, okay. Well, that's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your interest. What's going to happen, we will be voting tonight. This is for all of you who are interested in serving. We will be casting our ballots and then turning them over. And then in terms of announcements, when will that occur, Mr. Sable?
You will be notified after tomorrow, after the vote has taken place.
Okay.
And then we'll make introductions to the board and commission liaison, who will then help walk you through timing and process and schedule and onboarding for the commission.
All right, next we have Joel Pfeiffer. Is that right? Joel, is he here? He's interested in the Heritage Preservation Commission. Is Joel here?
I don't see anybody else in the hallway.
Okay, then let's move on to Frank Marchio. Thank you for your interest in Parks and Rec Commission.
Hello? Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you.
We have 5 questions, as you know. Councilmember Cave?
Good evening.
Hello?
Hi. What do you feel you can bring to the Parks and Rec Commission, your interests, talents, and life experiences?
Sure. I feel like I could bring a real-world, boots on the ground kind of perspective. I've been coaching voluntarily for the youth programs for the last 8 years, baseball, basketball, football through the Oakdale Association, but we use a lot of the Maplewood parks. And I know how valuable they are for the youth and for just residents overall and community. And I'm also a avid dog walker, so I go through the parks daily, and I know I can bring my collaborative approach on that. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you.
Councilmember
Good evening.
Juniman.
Hello.
Please discuss why you believe parks and open spaces are important to the quality of life for Maplewood residents.
Yeah, I think that they're extremely important for community bringing and for people being able to get out and enjoy nature and exercise, and for the youth, for sports, and for just being able to just get out and enjoy the air, the day like today, like yesterday. There's so many people walking around, so many people walking their dogs, talking to each other again, and seeing each other out in the parks. It just brings the community together, in my opinion. So,
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
What do you see as the strengths and weaknesses of the Maplewood Park system?
Well, the strengths are definitely the variety and the number of parks that we have. And there's more than I even know about. There's so many different parks that are around. And we have, I've said this many times, so a lot of different residents, we have some of the best parks in the cities, in my opinion. We have so many variety. We have just different, like I use Afton Heights, pretty much every year for baseball. We use, I was also a director of operations for Gethsemane Church and School. So we use it at Gethsemane Park all the time, where we worked with Neil on working on those things. So the strengths are that just the number of different parks that we have, the availability of them. I think the weaknesses are probably the number of parks that we have and the limited resources, I would assume. It's hard for us to maintain that many. Not that they don't do a great job, because I think they do, but I think that that's got to be a tough part of the city to maintain them all, which I think, like I said, I think they do a fantastic job of, especially with coaching for Oakdale for the last 8 years. I see what they do over at Oakdale, and I always be like, well, yeah, Maplewoods are good. Maplewoods are set, so they always, I get to brag a little bit about that, so it's always fun.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, thank you.
Councilmember Lee.
Frank, what do you see as the most significant challenges facing the city in regards to parks?
Yeah, similar to the last question, is just the limited resources. I think that would be hard to maintain all of the parks and to bring them up to speed. Probably the financial part of it, to try to increase some of the expenses that they might have, and maybe even if we want to make it bigger and better. Wakefield Park was a fantastic addition. I used that last year for my son's graduation party, and it was just awesome. However, the hard part is I had to go on New Year's Day, at like 1 a.m. or whatever it was, to try to book it. So it's hard to maintain, and I mean, it's such a demand for it, which is a great thing, but it's hard to try to book those when there are so many different people trying to get into our park system. So,
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome.
Councilmember Villavicencio.
Hello. Discuss what the city's priorities should be regarding park maintenance and improvements to city recreational facilities.
Sure. I mean, the priority has to be safety, I think, safety and just keeping it clean and well-maintained. And then accessibility, I think, is also a huge part. You want it accessible for all ages, all residents, even non-residents. You want to make sure it's accessible. I know that maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, but I live right by Sterling Oaks Park, which is pretty much just walkable only for residents currently in that area. You can park on a street, but you can't really walk to it. So, like I said, maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's not. But there's a lot of, like little neighborhoods like that where the accessibility is kind of hard for people to get to and really enjoy our awesome parks and rec. So,
Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
We appreciate
Thank
it. You heard the timeline
I
that
did,
you'll be
yeah.
contacted tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks.
Council members, we have a score sheet for commissioners, if you would like to take a moment and fill that out. Did Joel ever? Okay.
Mayor and council members, Mr. Pfeiffer has not shown up yet. We'll have Joe Sheeran out in the lobby, and he can flag us in if he sees anybody, but as of now, I don't see anybody in the audience or in the lobby area.
Okay. Thank you. We'll turn this in. We'll give him a chance until the end of our workshop to see if he is able to get here. So moving on to our amended agenda, we now have the oh.
They don't have to stay.
Oh, thank you. Candidates, you don't have to stay. You certainly are welcome to stay if you would like to. We're going to have a great presentation on kind of a future vision of the community center. We all find it fascinating. You're welcome to stay, but don't feel like you have to. It won't be counted against you, okay? So please, it's up to you.
Appreciate that.
Thanks. Thank you for that. That's a good reminder. All right. We will have a presentation on the Maplewood Community Center pre-design. Mr. Darrow, you are going to tee this up.
Sure. Good evening, Mayor and Council. We have Chris and Jennifer here from LSE. They are going to provide an overview on the community listening sessions from last week and jump into some pre-design concepts. So I'll turn it over to them.
Good evening.
Good
And welcome
evening.
back.
Thank you, Mayor Abrams, council members. We're pleased to be back this evening to provide you a little update on the pre-design for the community center. Our team, LSE Architects, has put together, as you know, a schedule for the pre-design master plan. We are in the beginning of the 8th week. We have about 4 weeks left to go before you see a final version. We'll be back here. Which week are we back here? Week 12, I believe, yes. And so with that one, we will come back with a final 1 or 2 recommendations. And tonight's will help and inform that. We want to provide a little bit of an update on the community engagement that's been ongoing. We had, over the last week, 3 engagement sessions at the community center. These were all-inclusive open house settings. We had 2 on Monday, March 2nd, 1 in the afternoon, 1 in the evening. And at the request of some of the community residents, or actually maybe not residents, but participants, we added 1 Thursday morning as well so that we could get a broader user group input. We also had an online survey that was open for a week, and we got some input on that one as well. So in total, about 124 or so people participated. Others asked questions and walked by, but maybe didn't participate so much in the survey. A number of things we heard. I should also highlight that we did have the survey offered in 4 languages. We had English, Spanish, Hmong, and Karen, all offered to residents. We heard a number of things. I'm not going to go line item by line item through each of the comments. These are kind of some direct comments, some summaries. But we heard that people very much love and appreciate the fact that there is a community center in the community. There were even a group of people waiting as we got there, worried that there was news of something closing down. And so they were very excited to hear that this is really a longer vision about what is going to happen here at the community center. People very much recognize that there are large maintenance needs at the facility and large expenses coming related to maintenance needs. That was something we heard over and over, and we heard a number of people share just comments about probably just need a new facility, but a number of different opinions on that. Overall, we heard really an interest in maintaining space for classes, studio classes, socialization. People love the track, would love to see more connections to the outdoors. Aquatics was something that we heard appreciation for. We happened to be set up right outside the pool, which may or may not have contributed to that. At the beginning, I should say, at the beginning of our afternoon open house, the pool was not open during any of that time, but it was in the evening when we were there. So in the afternoon, we heard some comments about it not being open enough. You can see a number of the other comments. People, primarily seniors, are who participated in the open house in the engagement piece of it. There were a little bit more in the evening, diverse input, but primarily seniors. People loved also some of the, I'm sorry, I was just looking at this thinking this looked like the next slide, but no. They would love to see more accessibility upgrades in the center as well. Maybe I'll jump up to, and more non-fitness type classes. Jump to the next one. We then asked folks what brought them to the community center, just to get an idea of whether they were there for fitness, socialization, or entertainment. I should share that when we looked at this question, both the online and the 3 different sessions, about 58% were there for wellness. It's clearly the predominant reason people come to the center. Entertainment represented about 10%. And we're not sure some people thought entertainment was entertainment just to be at the community center, and some for other reasons. And then social engagement is closer to, let's see, I wrote that percentage down. Social engagement was closer to 22%, and then 10% said all of the above. When we ask people what are some other ways that they think the community center could support the needs of the community, we heard, again, more about accessibility upgrades. Some real challenges in terms of that front entry is really difficult for people. We heard, and I maybe should have shared at the beginning of the presentation, but a lot of people comment about the difficulty in coming in on one floor and then having to go down to the other to find where you were going. Clear wayfinding and accessibility, real challenges with this building. People asked why it was designed this way, so that was something we heard a lot. People would love to see more connections to the outdoor space. You have such a beautiful site and scenery, but the entrance, the parking, the drive around, really the asphalt kind of dominates any connection to the outdoors, and so we heard people say that a lot. They'd love to have some outdoor studio spaces. And then again, more about the maintenance. People are recognizing the really big, large needs that there are for the facility. Aquatics, we heard about that they would like to keep some type of whirlpool and sauna. And then a lot of people really loved and appreciate the murals at the pool. And so those do kind of dominate the interior of the community center. It really is sort of the only color that you see when you're in the building. So it does make quite an impression on you. And we heard some appreciation for Forest Lake YMCA pool, which we did, so we could appreciate that comment. Then when we ask them what they think could be done, did I just do this one? No, this is a very similar question, right? What are other ways? Yeah, what are other ways that the community center could support the community? The theater, we heard a few comments about the theater. I do have to kind of qualify that and say that it, again, was predominantly seniors that were participated, And most of them shared what they really liked about the theater is that the night before opening, they get to attend for free. And so that free participation seemed to be a real driver here. And then one person said that they really loved that theater, and I asked if they had attended a show, and they said once within the last 35 years. So frequency of use is something that maybe needs to be discussed more. Build new versus renovate. We heard a lot of support about the idea of new. People seem to, at least who attended in this location, appreciated the location of the center, although clearly it was convenient for them and they were there. But a general understanding that a new facility is something that definitely should be studied given the dollar value in maintenance that's needed at this site. And then we did have one gentleman say keep as is, and so that's just the other end of the spectrum on that idea. Expand children and teen services. People would love to see more things for teens and kids to do at the center. And then also to contrast that, more senior services and things for senior to do, even a senior center was suggested. In terms of classes, people would love more studio classes, photography classes, alternative types of physical therapy, and other gym space was also shared. And then we asked kind of a general question about what makes people feel welcome. This is something that as communities change and demographics change in an area, it's always nice to get an idea of what makes people feel welcome. One of the things we heard is staff, that staff really make people feel welcome, friendly staff, and there was a real appreciation for that. Again, the idea of accessibility and clear wayfinding are something that immediately come across as unwelcoming to a place when users are challenged with the building or challenged with knowing where they're going. And again, this facility is designed in quadrants where it's very divided, and so that makes that difficult. Inclusion, again, classes and options for all abilities, all ages, so that's more of a programmatic thing. And then more vibrancy. So the building, as we noticed when we were in the space, is challenged in terms of lighting. There's some poor lighting conditions in the space in addition to just colorful, vibrant space. And then we had a visual listening board where we had a number of activities and types of spaces, and people could put hearts on the things that they think they would enjoy doing or would like to see happen at your community center. The kind of top contenders were a track, studio classes, other fitness type things, and then some kind of indoor park or indoor greenery sort of wellness spaces. Secondary to each of these, I would say the children's spaces, because we had multiple areas for children's children's activities. Children's came in just after that. And so people are excited about all the different varied options that there were. And in general, you see a lot of hearts up there. So people would like to see a lot of things happening here at the center, many of which are not possible right now in your current facility. With that, we're going to talk about what are ways to bring all of those things to the center to make those possibilities and some of the options that we've looked at. Chris, why don't you walk through these and I'll jump in on occasion.
Thanks, Jenny. So tonight we're going to present 4 different options for you. The intent isn't that you're going to necessarily pick your favorite one, but hearing which ones do you think are rising up, which ones do you think are maybe less interested solutions. With these 4, 2 options present saving a significant amount or some of the building, and 2 options assume that you're building new on the same site. So we'll start with your existing building. Us looking at it on the site, it's mostly sitting on that north side of the property. There's a lot of circulation, a lot of parking. Looking closer, that 2-story center with a lot of the YMCA spaces, the gym, the fitness, and the aquatics on the lower level, which has 1 entrance. And then you kind of have two entrances, although in practice, really, people are only entering from that south bottom entrance, where you have that theater and banquet space. And then the track, which is really almost at a slightly different level, so it doesn't level out with that, and so it's not accessed from that level. So you almost have a third level to the facility. Looking at option A, we call this kind of our center commons. So we'll start on the site and then we'll step in. So this one takes your existing building, takes that theater space and reimagines it, as well as a lot of the common space, and starts to look at the ability of pulling some of that parking up so that you leave space on the south side of the site for a potential future redevelopment. Looking at the building more closely, we start to try to clarify entries. You'll still be left with 2 levels of entry, but by creating a large commons, potentially some sort of large stair area, you now have a much wider space that's going to be easier to supervise. You then take the YMCA and you shift it into what's technically actually gym level that we would build a second level to. So the first court where the fitness area would get a second level. We would then extend the gym, building 1 more court, so you'd have 2 basketball courts and that fitness. But now the Y starts to feel like the primary anchor tenant of the space, but not the only tenant of that space. That commons then would lead up to an expanded banquet space that could be used as your multi-purpose for small performances, a children's play area, meeting space, and a potential space for a partner, which could either be a local organization that partners with you or internally if you wanted to bring space or run a program from that area. Essentially, the exterior of the building in both that south side and on the north side would have some sort of addition to it. So it would start to feel like a new building, but you're still keeping some of those core structural elements. As we look at this through community feedback, we've heard more gym space, and that's one that just kept on coming up, as well as more exercise space. And then this desire for, this is the keep as is, performing the maintenance that's required on the building and expanding it. But at the end of the day, the middle of the building is the same building that you have right now.
So the least transformational of the options.
Number 2, option B, we call this the pool anchor. This is essentially where we say, we're going to keep the pool area only, and then we're going to expand the building south. The reasoning for this is a pool space is going to be the most expensive per square foot to build, so you keep the expensive space and then you build off of it from there. And then you preserve space on the north side for potential future redevelopment. Looking at the plan here, it's oriented on the west side with a large commons that would have an events entry and a YMCA entry, a 2-station gym, locker rooms, the pool area that again is that same pool space, youth space to the north, and then your banquet hall and kind of community partner functions to the south. On the second level, you would then have a fitness, studios, and your running track, which is essentially the same size as the track that you have currently. From community space or community feedback, this one, the idea of preserving that wall art in the pool area may be important to people. It expands your exercise spaces, and then it really creates this north side bar that is your indoor children's playground and some sort of youth-centric spaces. Option C is our first option where we start to look at what would happen if we chose to rebuild on the site. In this option, we would preserve space on the north for potential future redevelopment. Your parking is on the west side, and then the building sits on that east side, really starting to hug the buffer that's the edge of where the wetland begins, so preserving all that wetland area. Looking on the floor plan, similarly, this one would have a commons on the west side, so taking advantage of really having good views to the street, but it starts to then tuck around, so then you also have community spaces that are facing all that wetland area and are facing the pond and some of the really good views that are on the site. You again have a 2-station gym, an aquatic center, your YMCA entrance. The second level would have fitness, as well as studio space and that potential partner area. And then that level 3, we start to pull up that banquet space. So where the other ones, the banquets always sat on the ground level, this one we say their views out. It's a unique space. It feels different than other things that are in the community. And so then you think about, you could have a roof terrace or something that really makes it this really attractive event venue. And so the community support for this one would be that classes and support and hangout spaces. Again, more exercise spaces, and then more parking, because now the building's on a more condensed space, so you still preserve that future development, but you also have the most amount of parking space available to you so that it's easy and convenient.
There's also great connections in this one to the outdoor spaces, given that you have that view of the wetlands in the park, or the lake in the park, and then the potential for outdoor rooftop kind of activities.
And then option B, this one we call New South. So again, building new on the site. And so the benefit for this one is, again, freeing up more of that site for redevelopment. The other one is, it's maybe a little hard to see in some of these, but you can start to see the outline of the existing center, but it doesn't build using any of that space. So there'd be no reason that you couldn't build it independently and keep the center running until it was time to tear it down and open the new building. So you'd have that continuous running, as well as then a central atrium. So this one, the building starts to bisect with a central corridor, and the YMCA functions sit on the west side, and then your event functions sit on the east side. You can be able to overlook the lake and all of those. In the middle, you create this commons area that could be that outdoor park. It becomes your pre-function space. And is really clearly open to the community. It's neither the YMCA's nor the banquets, but both can use it when it makes sense for them to. And one of the benefits of looking at this way, where you have it, is, well, this is way beyond the scope that we have. The orientation of this one would allow you to, should you ever choose to move the city hall, you could redevelop this entire site for housing, or you could still choose to just use that north side for redevelopment. But in terms of your ability for redeveloping the campus, this is the biggest option. Again, kind of beyond our scope, but just thinking in that way. Some of the options for here were that build new center on this property. That woman who had given that comment, she was just really concerned about, what's going to happen during construction, and so this one has that opportunity to build separate. Again, more exercise space, just like the others, and a community outdoor and atrium space, having that main connection as kind of the driver of the whole building. So I know that was very quick. If you want us to go back and discuss any of them, we'd love to, and we'd love to hear kind of where you're feeling like the direction of these might be, and which ones you'd love us to further develop for the 13th.
I have to say, this is pretty exciting. Something that you said when you were talking about option A, the center commons, it is the least transformational of the four. And I guess my perspective, council members, is that this is a really big thing for our community. And the timing is right. The legislature got rid of the moratorium on local option sales tax. We have an avenue to pay for something. And I guess my thought is that a transformational building is really what I would like to see in Maplewood. I think C New East, it still uses the current pool, correct? And then builds, is that right?
It doesn't necessarily, but we could certainly look at that one in that same orientation. Yeah.
Just because the pool is going to be one of the most expensive elements of this particular building, I think that is appealing to me. The fact that it is so engaged with the outdoors, having that third floor patio decking for a banquet hall. I believe too, on some of the pictures, the ones that the original ones, that there was like a bike, I want to say, it was a bike plaza or something like that, that would be engaged with, we call it a pond. I think we call it the pond rather than wetlands, but you're probably more correct. But that, I think, draws people both in from the outside, but also from the outside, or from the inside to go out. And I like the fact that the entrances would be on the same level. When I attended the event, people were saying the same thing too. You know, having entry points on 2 different levels is really confusing to a lot of people. And if we can reduce that confusion, that would be great. The fact that there's more meeting spaces for people, I think is really a great element. And I think of now we're looking, I asked this of Mr. Sable, all of these designs are in the same ballpark in terms of cost.
Yes, I mean, yes, you'd have to look at some other things like the redevelopment cost and other areas, and we'll get more into that in the next round here, the
Right.
next 4 weeks, but yes.
If I look at the numbers, and I try to go back to the other pages, New East would be the largest of the 4 plans, is that right?
Correct. Yep.
Which goes along with the, this is almost a 40-year-old building.
Right.
Council members, what we're thinking about is, I'm going to guess, might be here longer than many of us sitting on this council, and maybe the staff too. And so I think we really have the obligation to get this right. And I like the idea of it being transformational. We don't just want the same building with a redo and, maintenance kinds of things. So those are my thoughts. Councilmember Cave.
I would agree with everything she says, not to repeat the same things, but I do like C and D. I like it because it's more inviting, and you can separate if it's the why. You can separate that from people being able to walk in and have all the space that they can use, like Woodbury, which I've been there. So I do appreciate that. I like how New South faces more stuff faces the pond. Just because it is beautiful. But I like New East, how much common area you have. I like that about it. Concern I have is like the pool. Is this going to be a pool like it was before? Or are we going to do a kids' play area pool? That's kind of what I don't know what people are going to want, but if you build something like a, community center for kids to go to, you need to take up a lot of space, or do you leave a large pool open for lap only? And that's going to be the community deciding on that. But that would be a question I have about the pool area. Also facing where the pool is. Right now, the pool area, I guess they have a lot of issue with sun. So over at the community center, so there's issue with glass. So I want to make sure when we put something in, it's facing the way we're not going to have the most problems with. And other than that, I love, between the New East and the New South, I love the added space you can do with outdoor stuff, the banquet facilities, a 3rd floor. That's kind of what I would envision people wanted, and it's great to see that the board you put, a lot of people wanted that. So it would be great to get a variety of ages giving input on this, because that's what I'm looking for, to see what everyone at the community wants. Thank you.
Councilmember Villavicencio.
Yes, sorry about that, Mayor. I would say that I'm leaning more towards thinking that the letter C, New East, would probably be best for Maplewood. The question I have is, and maybe this is the next step of the process, but are there any plans yet so far about what the outside would look like, more like trails, and like, are there improvements to that or anything like that?
Not yet. We're not at that phase yet. First, we're just making sure we've got the right approach and vision 2-dimensionally, and then we'll get into that in the next phase.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Lee.
Thank you, Mayor. I think great feedback from the council. Where I'm at is I'm torn between B and C, given the fact that I know that the pool is going to cost a lot of money. But I'm looking at how can we envision the pool space and creating some new energy and new vibe for that. So we can take the extra funding that we would normally spend on the pool and expand in other places so we can make a bigger community center. So I'm kind of a mesh between B and C where it makes sense to go with financially. But I definitely think that there's a lot of opportunity that the community can use in terms of the banquet space on the third floor. A lot of places are doing it right. And if we do this right and it can become a good social enterprise for the YMCA, I think there's a lot of opportunities there for the city and the Y.
Thank you. We have no other lights on at this time. Do you have anything else for us?
You know, I would, my last comment might be that the community seems eager for something to happen at the community center. And this was my first open house that I had ever seen someone put a heart on a sales tax suggestion board. So, yeah, seems like you've made a good choice there, so.
Thank you very much. I think it is a good choice, and the timing seems to be just right for us. So thank you for all your work. This is exciting stuff. Mr. Sable, what's next?
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Just so our staff will work with the great team from LSE. They will go back and do sort of the next iteration of thinking. Just to forecast, this will come back to you for a final sort of review on April 13th. So it is a fast and furious time frame, and we appreciate all the work that goes into it. You guys did a great job with the open houses and the opportunity to provide feedback. And so we are marching ahead, and it's really exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, okay. We are going to, council members, circle back to our last candidate. Let's see, Joel Pfeiffer. You want to come up to the microphone, please? And please introduce yourself. Welcome.
Hi. I'm Joel Pfeiffer. I've been a resident of Maplewood for 30 years.
You have to speak up or move the microphone a little.
I've been a resident of Maplewood for 30 years. My family and I have enjoyed living here. I have 2 kids who have gone to Carver Elementary and Maplewood Middle School. I've worked at 3M for 30 years. I'm retired now. So I've had very heavy involvement in Maplewood. I have taken advantage of a lot of things Maplewood has to offer, a lot of outdoor activities at Fish Creek, Battle Creek, Maplewood Nature Center. So I feel like I'm pretty involved in the community.
Wonderful. We have 5 questions for you. We're going to start with Council Member Cave.
Good evening.
Okay.
Hi. What do you feel you can bring to the Heritage Preservation Commission? Your interests, your talents, and any life interests?
Some of my interests are history in general, so U.S. history, history of Minnesota, history of the local community. As a hobby, I collect antique beer cans, so a lot of that involves doing a lot of study and history of where to go out and look and find old cans that have been disposed of many years ago. So I utilize historical societies, including U of M and Minnesota. As part of my history and interests, I go to the Minnesota History Center a lot and other historical things within the community.
Thank you.
Councilmember Juniman.
Hi.
Hi.
What is your understanding of the responsibilities and objectives of the Heritage Preservation Commission?
My understanding is to really identify existing and potential new sites and facilities that should be considered for the HPC. Also to utilize, communicate within the community about things that are existing as well as potentially new facilities and sites.
Thank you.
How familiar are you with the history of Maplewood as well as local and regional historical events?
I would say knowledgeable, certainly not an expert, but with my interest of history, so familiar with Gladstone and some of the history of Maplewood and of other areas in the Twin Cities.
Thank you.
In your opinion, what aspects of Maplewood's history do you believe are significant and deserving of preservation efforts?
Okay. A lot of the ones that have already been identified and you're dealing with, certainly the Ramsey County Poor Farm, I think is just a beautiful building, has a lot of history, and certainly is, I think, a valuable part of Maplewood. The Heritage Farm is, again, very interesting. I've spent time there. Some of the other things I know you've been looking at as far as possible sites like the KSTP transmitter. And so that's something that has a long history of not only the radio station growing up with, but also just everybody has driven by it and seen it. So it's kind of an iconic, something that's a landmark for people and is interesting.
Thank you.
Councilmember Villavicencio.
From your perspective, what are key qualities and attributes that make an individual an effective commissioner for the Heritage Preservation Commission?
Okay. For any activity or group, certainly strong communication skills are very important. I think just bringing excitement to the activities is very important. Being open-minded, team player, being able to work with others very well. Really being a good listener and trying to understand what other people are saying and trying to communicate to other people in the group.
Thank you very much. We will be casting our ballots, giving them to Mr. Sable, and you will receive a call tomorrow.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much for your interest. We
Thank you.
appreciate it. Council members, if you want to finish marking your ballots and pass those into Mr. Sable.
She can be called when she's called. They have a meeting Wednesday night that's kind of
Whatever you've got, your notes.
climate mitigation plan.
Do you want all these, or? I'll take
Next on our agenda, Safe and Stable Communities Discussion. Mr. Sable, you and Ms. Parr are going to be kicking this off.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I think this is an appropriate time to have a conversation about while we are largely through the bulk of Operation Metro Surge and the number of federal law enforcement agencies and agents and actions taking place in Maplewood has tapered significantly from a month ago, 6 weeks ago. It feels like maybe even longer than that. But this is a transition point and an inflection point where we can start to talk about what does recovery and resilience look like in as we come out of some of the things the negative impacts that we potentially had seen in Maplewood and in the region. As you know, the city of Maplewood joined a coalition of 25 cities called the Safe and Stable, the Coalition of Safe and Stable Communities. This was a group that banded together that said that if there are opportunities for advocacy for cities that are impacted, that we would be better off in a coalition rather than trying to argue individually. And I will make an editorial comment that often larger cities like Minneapolis and St. Paul have outsized influence on getting access to resources. And there was a desire by suburban communities to say, raise our hand and say collectively, wait a minute, we were impacted too. We need to have a seat at that table. Whatever a decision gets made, that we want to have a voice at that table. And so there is an advocacy group. As I said, there are 25 member cities, and there are 5 cities who have signed on as allies in support of our efforts. And they're really focused around 3 things. Number 1 is good process. I think we saw from some of the federal law enforcement actions that the process was unclear, that it was often confusing and often changed by the day, and so that there was an opportunity for a good process. Number 2, that there were economic impacts that are that have impacted our communities, it's impacted our businesses. I know there are examples of students who were fearful of attending school, and so there's going to be some education gaps. And so there's a lot of layers to what had happened, and we have tried to quantify them as best we can. However, it's always a moving target. And then what we want to make sure is that there are protocols in place to prevent future items that would diminish public trust and community safety. And so these are really, the focus is on these 3 core principles: the rule of law, the local economy, and strengthening trust and community safety. And so this work is ongoing. And so what we wanted to do was to kind of create a platform and a venue for discussion. I will also just note that we had one of the few communities that did a community listening session, and I know that that was an important part for people to be heard. And so rather than having an open microphone for people to yell, we actually had a more constructive dialogue. And I think there is if you want to think about what we do going forward, I think maybe replicating that model would be a good way to demonstrate a connection, because I know there is still a desire by many in the community to continue to do this work and to continue to strengthen what's going on. And so Community Development Director Parr and I sort of put this together in the hopes that this would spur conversation. So if you have ideas or deeper questions, we would love to just have a nice constructive dialogue.
Thank you, City Manager Sable. Council members, Mayor, we're just going to run through really quick, and we can jump off script here, but we just want to talk a little bit about the impacts we've been hearing and seeing, talk a little bit about what we're doing here in Maplewood, what we're seeing other people do, and then also what resources do we have to look at if you want to consider to do anything further at this moment. So as far as the impacts, this is in no way inclusive of the impacts. As City Manager Sable said, we have impacts far beyond our businesses and people trying to pay rent. We have impacts to our kids and schools, and far encompassing. But some of the biggest that we've been interfacing with people about is obviously the workforce disruptions. When people don't feel safe to come to work, they don't. And that creates a real problem for people trying to run a business. We see that there's been reduced economic activity for our small businesses. Some of the businesses that we've gone out and met with have said, yeah, this has really been a hard hit. I think they're still trying to get their hands around what that means. So to form numbers for our economy, I know the only one I've seen out there is Minneapolis, and that changes by the day. So I think that's going to be something we're going to have to come to grips with over time. Minnesota nonprofits, they've estimated a 116% spike in inquiries for financial aid in February. We've seen an increase in need for food and housing. The Home Line, which is often the resource a lot of our folks throughout the metro and Minnesota go to for assistance when they have issues with paying rent or needing housing, 82% it's up, which is huge. Also an increased need for utility and child care support for workers, and then just that fear of uncertainty is huge. So what are we doing? We are active members of the Cities for Safe and Stable Communities Coalition. As City Manager Sable indicated, a community conversation was hosted, and I think it was really productive. We've been engaging with residents, businesses, nonprofits. We've met with a number of nonprofits to talk about what they're seeing and doing, and then other communities to understand how are they offering support. I think a lot of communities are kind of where we are right now. They're trying to figure it out. We've had a few that have stepped up right away and are trying to understand if they should do more or less and how long that should run for. But I think a lot are trying to understand, is there enough resources out there, or do we have to do something additional? And then providing an online clearinghouse with the help of our communications department for impacted businesses and residents. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. What are others doing, particularly in relation to business assistance? You have likely heard about the Economic Response Fund. That was $3.5 million that some of the larger companies in Minnesota brought forth to support small businesses. The Minneapolis Foundation has kind of been helping push that out to nonprofits to get that out the door. While it's the Minneapolis Foundation, it also includes Maplewood. We sent a letter out, or an email, to all of our businesses that we could to make them aware of that. We also made them aware of the salt cure, which is specific to restaurants. And that one, they helped out with payroll, rent, and other operational costs. We also sent an email out in translated form as well to our restaurants. Both of those top two are closed at the moment. If they get a surge of more funding, they're going to come out again, and we've been told I'll be notified if that happens, but at the moment, they are closed for new applicants. Our nonprofits are, and this is in no way encompassing, we have a lot of different nonprofits, but just to give you an idea, Hmong American Partnership, they're working with businesses and as well as NDC and a number of other nonprofits that work with businesses directly to get resources out to them. And they vary across the board in regards to what they can be used for and how much. It's pretty limited on what that is, but I think they're trying to figure out how to get more money. And one of the things that they're waiting to see is if the state, there's a $10 million proposal for assistance, and they're hoping to be able to get some of that money to help disperse it. So I haven't seen anything as of today on whether that's a go, but we'll be watching that as well to make sure that we're aware and able to advocate on behalf of that. And then as far as rental assistance, specifically, Ramsey County, to their credit, has been really active in trying to get that out early. They have, basically right now, they have a program that allows up to 2 months of rent or mortgage needs, up to $1,800 in utility assistance for electricity, heat, and water. Just to give you an idea what some others are doing, St. Paul, they have $500,000 they put aside for emergency rental assistance. That program won't start until April 1st, and that's one-time payment up to $2,500. And both Ramsey County and St. Paul, it's at 80% area median income. So you have to have a need, obviously. Minneapolis, they have $1 million they put aside for rental assistance. I don't believe that's out the door yet, but they are in the works, as well as a number of other cities, including Roseville. Roseville is working on creating a rental assistance program as we speak. They're looking at up to 2 months with a max of $3,000 per applicant or per person or household, and that's one time per year. That has not been approved yet, but having talked to the nonprofit they're going to be working with to get an understanding of what that program looks like, they're moving forward with that most likely. And then there's a lot of nonprofit offerings out there as well for rental assistance. Not so much for businesses, but in this case it's more for individuals that are renters. There's a few for mortgage, but they are more limited. And what we're seeing, there's like 2 that I've seen out there thus far for mortgages. And then resources. I had a caps lock that went a little nuts on this one apparently, so please forgive a couple weird capses. But we want to talk a little bit about some of the resources that we've utilized for different programs, just to give you some idea of the funding sources out there. Not that all of these could be used for, say, rental assistance, utilities, mortgage, but we wanted to give you an idea how we've made it work for other programs and the ones that could potentially be utilized for that if you so chose. The Housing Trust Fund, as you're all very familiar with, and we'll be talking about that again this evening. That one we use for our home improvement program. The ones that are bold, if you can tell the bold ones, those are ones that you have indicated you want resources from these funds to go towards these uses. Not that you couldn't use them for other things, but we've heard you and we're bringing things to you in the future in relation to that. The Housing Trust Fund can be used for grants, loans, loan guarantees, down payment assistance, rental assistance, home buyer counseling services as well. LAHA, or a local affordable housing aid. I should mention that Housing Trust Fund, that's $525,000, as I think you probably are aware. We gave $300,000 from our EDA, and then $225,000 is that matching, which we'll be talking about a little bit later on this evening. That's from Minnesota Housing, and that has to be used for the trust fund for the rehab program. We can't alter that at this point. So that's designated. The local affordable housing aid, or LAHA as we call it, we have about $809,000 in that account right now. We, on April 12th, The Habitat for Humanity will be coming to have conversations with you. The Scattered Site Program that you've indicated you'd like to put money towards that, they will be here to talk about that on April 12th in conjunction with the EDA and Joint Council. So that can fund the creation of new affordable housing. It can also be emergency rental assistance. It could also be shifted over if you wanted to use that to put more money into rehab of housing as well. And then our EDA fund and our levy, that is largely towards redevelopment efforts. It can broadly be used for whatever the EDA believes is appropriate, provided it falls within what they're allowed to support for economic development goals. And then the TIF funds, they are highly limited in regards, as we've talked about in the past, about the transfer of funds from one geographic area to another, to the north end. It is very prescriptive in regards to what you can do with it and the geographic area you can do it within. So that wouldn't be appropriate for this type of use. So the idea was just to give you some idea of what's out there that we have readily available to us at this time. And with that, I'm happy to turn it back over for any questions you might have.
Councilmember Lee has a question.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate this resource and some of the possibilities about what we can do for our community. I've been following this last week a lot of what other cities are doing, from Hopkins to Bloomington, Richfield, Roseville to West St. Paul. And I know there's a lot of conversations happening at the state about potential fundings that could be coming down to help support some of the folks that are impacted. I know that for sure in Maplewood here, we've had folks that has reached out that has been impacted who can't go to work or who are struggling with their businesses, can't pay their bill. I'm interested to see if there's a way where we can use our LAHA funding, looking at that to potentially provide some assistance to rental assistance to some folks that are in here in Maplewood. But where my interest lies is that they have to be Maplewood residents, given that we have about $809,000 of money that's sitting. I know we want to be intentional how we spend that, but I think my component of it is the purpose of that funding is to provide housing for people. And so I think it's important that, keeping people in housing is actually probably cheaper than having them leave and move and find housing other places. So I would be interested in seeing the number that I had in mind just right away, right off the back, is with $800,000, what other cities are doing, maybe $50,000 as a city to help fund some of the rental, help support some of the rental assistance here in Maplewood would be very beneficial and helpful for residents here in Maplewood. But we'd love to see if the council has that interest also.
Councilmember Villavicencio, you are next.
I was thinking, I know that the majority of the Metro surge has, quieted down. But I know that the pain that people have faced and are facing is not done. I mean, with the federal cuts that are coming down, and then the cuts that we will be receiving in the state level, I really feel strongly that we should use some of our LAHA money for emergency rental assistance. I do think that it should be limited to Maplewood residents specifically. I would actually go a little bit beyond what Councilmember Lee says and maybe put a little bit more money than what you said on there, because I think the need is pretty great. I would like to see from staff possibly what other cities are doing, what Roseville's doing, and how they're using their money and how much, if possible. Yeah, that's my comments for now.
Councilmember Cave.
I had a comment about Roseville. You said they were partnering with a nonprofit, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
They are partnering with CEE, which Center for Energy and Environment. I did speak to the director there, and in the case of this nonprofit or a number of others, their role is to administer the funds. So you pay a fee in order to set it up, similar to what we do with NeighborWorks for our rehab program.
I'm in favor of possibly, looking in that direction, not taking money out of LAHA because we have earmarked it for something. I think that the state and Ramsey County have a lot of programs, and people have access to them. And like you mentioned, there's more programs and more funding coming out. So to me, I just kind of see not using LAHA at this moment. But if we partnered with a nonprofit, but then sometimes I don't see what Roseville's doing too, because that's just taking a nonprofit, which somebody could go to anyway. But is it bringing it to the table quicker? You know?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Cave, I'm sorry, I maybe misspoke. I just want to clarify.
Okay.
So they still need to provide the money, and part of their money is their LAHA money in Roseville. Sorry, I should have been more
Okay.
specific about
No,
that.
that's fair. It makes, now I understand that a little bit better, so thank you.
You know, this is definitely a heart issue. We know that there are many people that are impacted, and the question is, I think we all have a heart for our community. That's why we're serving here. And the question is, are we the best resource for that? I'm reluctant to do anything with our LAHA money because we've already committed to that, and that is housing money. I've spoken with other mayors and what they're looking at, and one of the issues, we don't have a program, we're not the county. I did speak with Commissioner Miller, and she told me that the county does have funds available. People need to go online. I shared that information with Mr. Sable and Mr. Sheeran, and they put that on our city website. There's a form. People can go online and apply for county money. If they are denied because either they don't qualify or the county money just runs dry, then that is a precursor for individuals to then go to places like United Way, Salvation Army, and there's a number of other places as well, that what people need is they need that denial from the county that there's no money, that they're not going to get any money from there. Then they can apply for other funds. We've got our LAHA money coming on our agenda tonight that we're talking about, and we've already committed to that. One of the things that other mayors are struggling with that I think we're going to have to struggle with too in looking at some of this and what other options may be. We're not the county. We don't have Health and Human Services as a department. We're not Heading Home Ramsey. I reached out to Councilmember Villavicencio to find out, does Heading Home Ramsey, are they doing anything in terms of assistance to stave off evictions? I know there's talk about the legislature putting on a moratorium on evictions, but I'd like to follow up, and maybe at our next meeting, you can come up, you can respond to that question about Heading Home Ramsey and what they might have to offer. Because we don't have a program here set up, we would be required to partner with a nonprofit. And what I'm hearing from other mayors is the cost of that is about at least 20%. So if we were to designate $50,000, 10,000 of it already goes to the administration of it, which would leave about $40,000, which would, by the time, I'm just concerned too about timing, and these are maybe things that we can talk about further. By the time we were to find a nonprofit, gather all of this research, before we were to roll anything out, we are not nimble and we don't have anything in place right now. And so to get something out there, couple of months, and maybe what we might be able to offer would be a month. It seems to be a drop in the bucket when this is such a big issue. I think we all have such great intentions. We want to do something. The question is, what is it that we can do? I really have to commend Maplewood for looking at this from the perspective of going to the community, having a community conversation, finding out what the issues are, responding by having information and being able to direct people to different websites. Mr. Sable, I'm in favor of having another community conversation to find out where are we now and bringing people back together. Certainly there's information that we would all need to take a look at and see. And the last thing that I want to do is take money that we have earmarked for very important housing projects in our community and redirect that. You know, we've got our living coming out, and I know that there's going to be quite a bit of information about our new program where people can apply for our housing rehab program. By committing money one place, it has to come another place. We don't print money here. And so where would that come from? What would that look like? What kind of a commitment have we already made for that money? And are there, you know, I don't want to pull the rug out from anyone else where we have made commitments. So we've got a lot of questions that I think are warranted to look into. And the bottom line is trying to figure out, while we all have a heart for this and we recognize and know people who are hurting and businesses who are hurting in our community, are we really the best resource for that? I didn't see who was next. Councilmember Lee?
Oh, thank you for that, Mayor. I just wanted to clarify really quick. Now, the Housing Trust Fund, that's a $525,000. That's a separate funding that we've set aside, and the $809,000, the LAHA funding, is a separate funding that we don't have. We have some ideas of what we might want to do, but we don't have any solidified plans at the current time. Can you clarify that for me?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So the Housing Trust Fund for $525, that is solid, that's solidified. Tonight, you will have before you the contract with Minnesota Housing in order to solidify that. So that is solid, and if we wanted to go back and change that, we would lose our ability to get those matching funds, so it would be reduced down to $300,000. So that is solid. The local affordable housing aid, the LAHA, that $809,115, that has not been clearly called out for a specific project. On April 13th, when Habitat comes before you and the EDA, the idea is that they would show which projects they're planning on working on, one on BB and also on Duluth. They want to present those with some dollar amounts to give you an idea of how much funding they're requesting to cover the gap, to be able to move forward with those projects in the next year or two, depending on the project.
Thank you. Just got another comment really quick. So,
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. You know, I think we give thanks for that information, Danette. You know, I want us to really think through this, and with that funding that's available, and we have a limited time where we have to spend that LAHA funding by too. You know, I think in the work that we do, given that we don't have anything specifically planned for it right now, and still thinking through what it is, and I think our council, we have a really good idea. I mean, not a good idea, but we have an idea of what we want to do with it. At the end of the day, our council wants to be intentional in how we can support housing and build generational wealth for folks. I think in the work that we do, this is where we can talk about pivoting, where it allows us to pivot in the moments of needs for our community. And I think this is where we can directly make an impact to our community by supporting those folks who really do need this. And the requirement that, I mean, the AMI component of it, those are really the folks who are really struggling financially. So I think it's putting some money aside intentionally. I mean, the purpose is housing. This is where we can keep them in housing. And the impact is not something that's going to happen in the next 2 or 3 months here. We're looking at impacts that's happened already in the last few months here. People need help paying that bill. The piece with working with nonprofits, being a nonprofit person myself, I think it's important that we help support these nonprofits in terms of the admin fee. We should not be afraid to pay an admin fee to help support nonprofits. They do this work, and the joke that I always say is, you know, they do it because they want to be rich and famous, but the reality is they do it because they love doing the work. The funding that we have to support them, we should not be afraid to support. So, like, I mean, nonprofit fee, our ranges anywhere from 10 to 20%. I think that if we were to make an investment in this component, we should set aside a separate amount for the fee so that the actual impact that we're making is $50,000. If we take $50,000 from the $809,000, given the fee, I mean, we're looking at about $750,000. So just a rough number right now that we could still potentially make an impact in our community with housings and other projects. So I think this is an opportunity for our government to really say, we care about our community, we care about the people who are most vulnerable, and working with a nonprofit who already has the verification process in place, who already has a community base, and has people who they already are serving who wants to go to them because they're not afraid to go to these nonprofits. I think there's a lot of value in that work and the value that we can potentially make an impact to our community. So,
Thank you.
like, I guess to reconsider.
Councilmember Cape.
Yep, just really quick, I want to thank you again. I know you mentioned this, Danette, but, and our city, Joe and Mike, for putting all this on the website. That is, and you're reaching out with emails to everybody with businesses and, people. So I really appreciate that you already did that. I know you're talking about it here, but that's what's been done. So people know that you're really active in our community, and I really appreciate that because there are things out there for people, for, rent, for businesses, for, restaurants, and that's great to mention here, but you guys have already been doing that, so thank you. I appreciate it.
Councilmember Villavicencio. We've got one more item on the agenda tonight, and Mr. Love, you seem to be getting the tail end of this. We might have to put you on earlier if we can't finish it up, but I'm trying to move it along so we can at least hear a little bit of it.
Definitely,
Councilmember
I'll make this quick. I just want to say, I've literally been through rental assistance in the county, and it's not as easy and as great as they want to make it sound, and the money will go fast. It will go fast. It always does, even when there isn't an issue. And I think, in my eyes, I don't see this as like we're doing this because our hearts care about it so much. I think it's the right thing to do. So I do really think that we should look seriously at the LAHA money.
Thank you. Sounds to me like we have some questions for staff to do some research for us.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and council members. So what we will do, we will pull together kind of a summary of what neighboring communities or peer communities like us are putting forward. We'll also have kind of a broader sense for what those potential overhead costs would be. I will just forecast that there are going to be a number of decision points that you're going to have to make. If you consider a rental housing program, could someone get access to county money, city money, and could there be multiple multiple payments and then what would that impact be? And so we'll have to, there's a lot of mechanical parts that I'll say on the back end that have to be considered. And so I will just say that will be potentially challenging going forward.
One of the things that I'd like to add is something that I had expected that we would hear more about it, is the impact on our businesses. And this has been focused on rental assistance, which is one piece of it. But in Maplewood, we have our residents and we have our businesses. And it's almost like we've got trying to keep all the plates going up there. And I'm a little disappointed that we don't have any information about our businesses. And I know it's hard. I know that some businesses would not want to come forward and talk about the impact on them. But I don't want them to be left out of this because businesses provide jobs, they provide services, entertainment, and that supports families. And you can't just think about one without thinking about the other. Because if you don't have a business, if you don't have a job, 1 month of rental assistance is not going to be very helpful. So I would like to see us also include information as it comes available about businesses, because we need to pay attention to what's happening with our businesses. Many of them, shut down. They've lost workers. I'm very concerned about the number of workers that have left the state. I think we're going to be seeing more of an impact, especially here in Maplewood, on construction starts and, as we come into the construction season. So I don't want to forget about that. I know it's hard to find some hard information on that, but I don't think we can look at one without thinking about the other as well. So, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I'll just add, Madam Mayor, we did reach out to DEED as well, the state, to see if they have any numbers that we could use, that at least from a higher level. I know, as I said, Minneapolis is doing some forecasting, and they weren't able to give us anything in relation to specifics. They said it's too early, and it's kind of an unknown at the moment.
These are challenging times trying to figure out where we can best put our resources. So thank you for that. And I think we need to move on because we've got, Mr. Love, we're going to have you just at least introduce this.
Yes, Mayor and Council, good evening. So tonight, we're going to be having our first conversation about street assessments. So it's really the beginning point here. I'm really here to provide you some background on 429 assessments, some of the challenges I see that we may be facing in the future, and start talking about what steps we might take to kind of continue the conversation. So, I apologize, my top part there looks to be sinking into the picture. We know that we have 135 miles of streets in Maplewood, and within those corridors, we have a vast network of storm sewer and sanitary sewer systems. We know that when we redo the streets, it has a big impact on the quality of life for our residents. An example is this is Frost Avenue before and after. One of the things that we use to help pay for projects are assessments, but just remember they're just one of many funding sources that we utilize. So I've got two items that I want to touch on with the 429. The first one is the fact that an assessment cannot exceed the benefit to the property. So as a reminder, and I know you guys have heard this before, but our process is each year the council sets an assessment rate, and that's the maximum rate that we're going to assess for a project. When we start a project, we hire an independent appraiser who looks at the project and tells us what he thinks that assessment value should be. And then we take the lower of the two. Now, I can't really recall the last time that we had it where the assessor has come in and said, we really have to be below what your maximum is. It's generally, yes, we've substantiated the maximum and it could potentially be higher. So the other item is that at least 20% of the assessment of the eligible project costs must be through assessment. So you could be at 20% or higher. And what this allows you to do is to have those bonds without a referendum. You can still have an assessment that's under 20%, but then it has to go out as a referendum to the public. So I just want to make sure the distinction there. And so we've generally been trying to keep it at 20% or higher. So a little bit of history. The last time that we increased our assessment rate was in 2009. We increased it from 6,000 to 6,600. So there hasn't been an increase from 2010 and on. When we look at the cost per mile, and I'm really talking about our full reconstruction projects here, just so you know. In 2010, it was about 1.77 million per mile. We're now approaching 4.5 million per mile. So we've, I think the council and staff's approach is try to, yes, residents have to pay an assessment, but we're also not trying to put all of it on the resident, right? So we've been trying to walk that line. And we're starting to get to the point where that 20% is starting to get maybe a little challenging. So what directly affects it? Construction costs. That's the direct thing. Costs keep going up, and we keep the assessment amounts the same. There are a couple other situational things that come up, such as project scope. So for example, we have a neighborhood that comes and says, we want a sidewalk through here, but staff didn't have sidewalk plan. Well, now we're increasing that overall project cost, but we're still at that, trying to meet that 20%, so that total project cost has gone up, and so that makes that more of a challenge. The other thing is the number of properties along the road. So a good example of this is Prosperity. That whole stretch, we have Wakefield on one side and residents on the other. Well, that made it very hard because you can't assess the park, right? So those are the other things that can kind of come into play. So for next steps, what I'm recommending is obviously we're not saying any changes for this year's coming project. So 2026, we're okay. We're going to be starting up our CIP process pretty soon, and what we do is we estimate, we do our forecasts out 5 to 10 years of what the projects are going to be. We're going to be updating them with the estimate or the bid results that we get back on this year's project, so we'll have newer numbers. But for staff to take a look at that and see at which point are we going to run into that issue with the 20%. Then we would develop some options and then come back to council to continue this discussion. We're also in the process of gathering information on what other